Hey, Miguel Adorati back here on the MMA Museum podcast, and we're on another one of our deep dive interviews. This time I'm joined by, we're on a Northwest kick here. I'm joined by Anthony Hamlett of AMC and Northwest Elite and a few other teams that he's been around with. One of the teammates of Jeff Monson and Dennis Hallman, and one of the pieces under Matt Hume's teams going to Abu Dhabi. If you do this man, and you think you know him just by looking at his Short Dog or Tapology record, you're not doing this man justice. A fountain of knowledge in the MMA, and a guy who ain't afraid to tell you about it either. Anthony, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. How you been?
Good, good. You know, things are good down here. Glad to talk to you again after a long time. And so let's just kick it back to the beginning. I know you come from a wrestling background. You know, how young were you when you started wrestling? What talk about your youth, and we'll go from there.
I started in high school.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Were you a scrapper? Did you do a little street fighting and stuff as a youth, or what was the deal there?
Never. No, I fought twice in my life before I was an adult. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
okay, cool. Now, how was you took to wrestling? Were you a pretty good wrestler in high school?
I understand when it comes to grappling or wrestling, I just understand it differently than most. I understand leverage. So that's my main thing. Leverage is everything I work off. And you've seen me compete. These big old buff dudes, and I just pick them up. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's leverage. It's leverage.
So what was your high school career like?
I went from 29-2 as a freshman, wrestling JV freshman level, and I won league as a varsity. This is California too. I was 26-5 as a sophomore. I mean, that's why I think I told you recently. First time I watched one of my fights recently ever, in the current one. I never watched it. I've never watched anything. I've never seen any of the videos of wrestling there. I don't read articles. Because I've always been an overachiever. And I'm competing way in over my head. So anything that I read it's not gonna be good for me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know how good I was. I had no idea until I watched it. I was like, holy smokes, I actually knew how to fight. I really didn't. Because once I wasn't having fun out there anymore, I just stopped. You seen me, I stopped early. I didn't care.
Yeah. And like I said, let's get into it here. So now you're a young man, you haven't done a lot of street fighting. How do you gravitate to MMA? How'd you go from California further north into the Washington area?
So I start wrestling high school. I do a year and a half of junior college. Then I go in the Air Force, not to wrestle. They don't even have a team. 2 years later, they've got a team. So I've been out two years at this point. I went through the two toughest years of my life. I mean, as a wrestler, because I wasn't used to being the nail. And for 2 years, I was the nail, because the Air Force, they practice Olympic Training Center.
Okay.
Even though I was good enough to be there, I was the nail every day. I mean, it was tough. It was rough. I hated it. Oh, I couldn't imagine.
So what made you stay with, competing in a physical sport if it was something that, you had a hard time with or didn't like it?
I didn't like it at the end. I couldn't figure out why. It just, I used to love to compete. I didn't care who you put in front of me. I always said yes. My answer is yes. And I didn't like, people talk about Abu Dhabi and stuff like that, and we'll get into Hoyler later, but people always ask me, what did you think about grappling with Hoyler? I go, I didn't know who he was. I understand his family and been jiu-jitsu and so forth. I go, but why would I read anything about him? It's going to be goose dumb. It's not going to help me. I'm going to give him a dog. Whatever happens, happens. And,
you hung.
Yeah. I compete different, though. My reason for competing isn't to win. My reason to compete is to make you never want to face me again. That's my goal, is to make you never want to face me again.
Okay. Okay. Now, where'd that come from? Was that something just kind of natural, or are you mimicking, your dad or who was your mentor with that?
I grew up as a white minority kid in Southern California. You better be tough or you're going to be punked.
Okay. Okay. Now, how'd you get to the Northwest and meet up? Because to me, you're also like, Dennis Hallman's Robin with him being Superman, figuratively, and for sure too, his nickname.
Right. Air Force. I mean, kind of wrestled around, and then I didn't realize when I told you, Miguel, that I didn't look at my career. When I went to Abu Dhabi, I was 28 in my prime wrestling. I just All-American for the third time for the Air Force in Greco. I had if you look at it on paper, it doesn't say anything, but I mean, I wrestled a 2-time Olympic champion that year and put up 9 points on him. I mean, it was ridiculous. But like I said, I didn't look at any of this stuff, so I didn't realize what I was doing. I'm Matt, you've been around Matt or us. We just understand grappling. Dennis, we just understand grappling differently, and I'm sure if they put it into wrestling the same way they did into jiu-jitsu, they'd be doing the same thing. You know what I mean? Certain people understand grappling and wrestling just differently. It's a lot easier on the most, but that's how I ended up in Washington. Met Hallman at like a 24-hour fitness type thing, and there was a bet going on with him and the local guy that he couldn't submit the guy or he'd get a year's membership for free. And the guys, we nicknamed the guy Fake Jesse. So that's how I met Hallman, and he ended up dragging me up to AMC, a couple months later, and Matt gave me the biggest beatdown ever when I joined that team. He kicked my butt all over that ring.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. So now I'm gonna guess Fake Jesse owed Dennis a free membership.
We called him Fake Jesse to his face after that. He was trying to key lock you while he was inside your guard.
Okay.
So he'd been watching some videos, but I think he missed the part. He would tell us he would go down to California, and if there's nobody's winning yet, they'll throw 6 in the cage. I mean, it was bad. Luckily, he found me. Otherwise, I don't know how long I would before I found him, because I wasn't looking for it.
Yeah. Now, when you say you went up to AMC, that Matt Hume initiation is kind of world famous. Take us through yours, because he could be rough on guys.
Oh man, he'll knee bite your chest until you tap from. Oh man. The thing is, he'd choke you you could tap right before you're going to sleep, and you'll let go and just maneuver. Yeah, it was embarrassing, man. That's what it was. I was like, man, that's why when I went at him every time, I would go at him as hard as I could, because the only advantage I had was wrestling. That was it. Yeah, once that got out of the way, I was in trouble.
Yeah.
So, that room has some stories to tell, because there was some battles going on between all of us, beating each other up, getting each other ready, for sure.
Yeah. Now, you kind of were you there with the Lally brothers for a little while, or did you sort of replace them as the little guy on the team?
Barely missed them, and I've always been a fan of them too. I don't really know them. I mean, I know them, but I think they become amazing coaches. I mean,
yeah, for sure. And they were they didn't compete a whole ton, but they were rugged competitors as well.
Yeah.
They went to Abu Dhabi with Matt the first year in '98 when Matt competed. And they compete, or at least I think Todd competed, and so that was the first edition. So now let's go ahead. Was your first big competitions? Did you do MMA first, or did you do that Abu Dhabi first?
No, I fought. I fought in August. I'd already fought Frank Shamrock's guys in August before that year.
Okay, who was that?
You never know about the Frank Shamrock story?
No, go ahead, give it to us.
Oh my goodness! All right, it's Ivan Salaberry, myself, Hallman, and Kim Mason. There's a small town in Wenatchee, which is like 3 hours from where we live, Mill State. This promoter's put it on. He brings up Shamrock with his guys. Bob Cook, Crazy Bob.
Yeah.
Was gonna fight Hallman, and then I fought David Velasquez. And Kim fought somebody. Ivan fought somebody. Well, yeah, it's the show's on a Sunday, and Hallman and I, we're a bunch of pranksters, so we start calling, picking on Frank. We find out Frank's on our floor, down the room, down into the hall.
Okay.
And we're calling him and just being jerks, punks. So then we get the idea. I fill up a trash can with water. You lean it against the door, knock on the door, and take off running. When he opens up the door, it dumps water all over us. We did running down the hall. That was the funniest thing ever. Me, Ivan, Hallman went right into Ivan's room. my room was across the street. You know, Holman has his little cronies with him all the time.
Yeah.
His little group, the followers. They went in my room. Holman's ripping the screen off the window. And we look back and Frank kicks the freaking door off the hinges. We breaks the bed in. We jump out the window laughing like girls running down the street. We thought it was funny as hell. Hyphen goes, "Oh no, my shit."
Oh man.
We go back, the doors all kicked in, everything's gone. Everything's gone. And it's not early. This is like 2:30 in the morning. This is not Frank's been traveling all day. He's not in a good mood. This is Frank in August. He fights Tito in September. So think about that, Frank.
Okay.
This is Frank, the killer. Yeah. We're messing with a rattlesnake. It's not a good idea. So Ivan, we keep calling. He keeps hanging up. I go, Ivan, there's only one way we're going to get your shit, man. Let's go down there and get it. So we walk down there. When Frank opens up the door, he'll go out the door, and I'm to his right, Holman's in the middle, and Ivan's to his left. You know, Ivan, he's super apologetic. And I'm sorry, sir. I just want my stuff, please. Frank now has his tennis shoes on, and he's, you guys are fucking with the wrong motherfucker. I'll kill you, motherfucker. He's rightfully so. We were nobody. We had no business. Hallman, he knew at least. He didn't know us from nobody at all. Had no idea. Messing with a rattlesnake. And Ivan's just like, "Can I just please have my shit?" And Frank's like, "You want your shit?" He opens up the door. He goes, "Come in and get it." Ivan goes, "I ain't going in there." I go, "Fuck that." I go 2 steps, and he goes, boom. He palm punches me right in the face. "All right, I guess I won't." He's like, "You guys are fighting me tomorrow. Our guys tomorrow. We're gonna fuck you up." I go, "Yeah, we'll see about that." Now I'm pissed. I'm mad now. So I show the show's a shit flop. There's 70 people there, and it's a Sunday. So Hallman and Bob Cook gets canceled. This is 10-0 Bob Cook too.
Yeah.
It was gonna be a real fight. You know what I mean? Good fight. And Velasquez, I beat Velasquez. He fought. This was in August. He fought Holver in the UFC in February. And then oh man, I beat the brakes off him. I was so mad. Ivan smashed his guy. Kim smashed his guy. Ivan wiped his feet off and flicked it at Frank. That's how bad it was. But
Joey Gell got a win too, so you guys kind of swept the card.
Oh yeah, he was an amateur though. He was one of the amateurs still. Yeah. But we were on fire. That was the beginning of that. And then I fought in Shudo in Japan in December. Right after that.
Okay, and that was before the Abu Dhabi.
I had a big win there. What's that guy's name?
I'm not seeing it here. Let me see. Oh, Tetsuya
Katsuda.
Yeah.
He was number 1 right after that. Remember that? Because then what's his face? The other wrestler that passed away, rest in peace.
Yamamoto.
Remember Yamamoto when he wouldn't stop against him?
Yeah.
That was brutal.
And it looks like you also had a hook and shoot appearance against Jeremy Bolt before you went to Abu Dhabi. Is that right?
Oh, that's right. That was my very first fight. My first pro fight. So I had 2 amateur fights. I fought Victor Estrada in my first fight. You know him.
Yep.
I show up. I don't have an opponent. And I've got 200 people there from the Air Force there to watch me fight. And I'm like, Hallman, I got to have somebody. He's like, "I don't got nobody." I go, "You got guys in your team?" He said, "No." So Victor I've heard everything from 5-0 to 9-0. I don't know where his record was, but he was fighting for the 175 title that night. And I go, "You know me." I go, "I'll fight Victor and his opponent." That's how cocky I was. Dumb. Hallman goes, "You'll fight Victor?" I go, "Absolutely," and I did. And so that screwed me though, because the new guy beat the guy that was whatever he was. He was the big bad wolf, and I don't know how to fight yet.
Yeah, for sure. Now, some of the online records are messed up here because you actually went to Abu Dhabi twice, right?
Nope, just once.
Once? Okay.
Only in 2000. Only in 2000.
Okay, so you fought John Hawk and you beat Hawk. Then you fought. Oh, I remember what it was. Joey Gilbert was a 3-4 fight for 3rd and 4th place. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So let's get into it. First of all, you get in the opening round, you get John Hawk, who's Andre Pedernera student.
No, I was a Japanese guy. First, we went 20 minutes. I didn't even.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to, what was his name? He had a good career. What was his name?
He's not listed on the thing I'm
He
looking
he
at. Let me look him up.
what was the real good female? It was his wife. He coached her. The
Oh,
105
okay.
girl.
So you're talking about Abe.
Abe. Yeah, I faced Abe for 20 minutes right off the bat. And then after that, I faced what's his face?
John Hawk.
Yeah. How do you say his last name? Roque.
Yeah,
Roque?
Hawk. Yeah, with the H at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, that guy is a monster.
Yeah, for sure. He's a Hall of Fame jiu-jitsu guy and more, and he fought in Shudo. Definitely a legend, and to get a win over him. What would you remember about that fight? Because he was a guy, he fought Hoyler in jiu-jitsu and given him, all he was worth. And a lot of people thought, he was 1-2 with Hoyler as the legendary jiu-jitsu guys of that generation.
I always thought he was just at that time when I ran into both of them. I thought he was better than Hoyler at that time. I don't know what at their peak prime. What I mean, I can't speak for that. But 90 seconds into the match, he's got me mounted. I didn't think he grabbed a leg and swept me. And I was like, what the? We didn't practice for this, Matt. Because remember, I had 6 months of training, jiu-jitsu training with Matt. That's it.
Yeah,
that's all I had when I went there. So. My offensive skill set was very limited. I just had very good defensive skill sets,
Yeah, and with your Greco, but you didn't expect to be mounted. So how'd you get out of the mount? And how'd you progress to win that fight?
I got Matt in the corner. I'm used to being coached. I've been coached, from wrestling, whatever. I'm listening to a voice, and he walked me through it, and we walked. I'm
okay.
Yeah. And being, this is one thing I've realized. Being a Greco wrestler, I didn't realize how much it helped me in grappling because we are really focused on where not to put our elbows because that's how you get thrown. And that's where it starts to create traction. You know what I mean? As long as you keep your elbows out of that, it's the same thing with grappling. It's the exact same. So it made sense right away for me.
Okay. So you get out of a predicament in your first fight. Now then you face Hoyler, who was obviously the favorite in the whole tournament and did win it and stuff like that. But I remember at least 2 overtimes. So describe this fight and what you felt there. You actually said John Hawk was better, but obviously Hoyler was no joke.
Like I said, I didn't know anything what I was getting into. I had no idea. And I did not want to play the Monson strategy. I could have easily just stayed back and push you away. And I came to compete. And so when they engaged, I engaged. You know what I mean? I didn't have a battle. And it's the same way I coach wrestling. I think defensive wrestling is silly. Attack when they're attacking. Don't defend. Because when you're on defense, there's not a chance of you winning,
Yeah.
But if you're attacking on their attack, you have a great chance of winning. So yeah, he just I've been mad at myself because I said there was a minute and a half left. We would have went to overtime, and I was hurt because he would have lost a point or I would have scored. Either one, there was no way he was going to submit me, and there was no way that he was going to take me. You know what I mean? The overtime was made perfect for my situation that I was going to put myself in. I got too antsy, got too high, got swept, and for years I beat myself up. And I'm like, man, if I only, because I walk into a Soda fight and he beat Soda like 18-0 or something like that, and that was his student. Remember?
Yeah.
So that guy's a beast. So, but I got swept, too anxious, but you know what? Had I not been that anxious and that intense, I would have never got to that position and been there. It would have been over when Rope had me mounted.
Yeah.
So
now we go on, and in the 3-4 match, you meet another American, a wrestler, a very decorated wrestler. This guy, a freestyle wrestler, and that's Joey Gilbert. And you guys had kind of a mind game exchange. 2 strong minds, 2 tough competitors. What was your memory of this fight?
Oh, he's just a better wrestler than me. Period. It didn't matter what game that people ever played. He's a better wrestler than me. So I couldn't submit him. I didn't have an offense, and he's got better offense in wrestling. So that's all it was. He's better. There's nothing, what I mean?
And that's an honorable thing to say. And his decorated wrestler career, people would assume that. It's good to hear you say that because That's an honest assessment. Now, let me ask you about an exchange I heard about, like before the fight, that in the build-up, and this is the second day. So after the first day, you guys kind of know you're going to compete against each other, and the Americans kind of hang out together and stuff. And just as you were going out to the mat, maybe he had given you the impression that you were kind of gonna do an 80% match, or like compete, and he kind of let you know, I'm gonna kill you. Like we're gonna do this for real. Like seconds before the fight, did an exchange like that happen, or am I making it up?
No, that's funny. No, he was considering, I guess, not competing at all because he was injured after a loss.
Okay.
But Matt Hume said, "Don't do that. If you do, they're going to pull you from the fight, then you'll lose your money." Period.
Yeah.
So, well, he'll just go out there just to whatever and then do whatever. And so that it was the first time you got to remember, my silly butt was trying to get into the absolute division. I was Max, and Matt couldn't get me in. I don't know what I don't know. You know what I mean? It just so here's a chance between third, getting ready to compete for third, and that match are all open. You watch some high level guys go at it that day, and it was fun. Getting out there on the mat and going at it with people from different places all over the country. You'll never get to. And I was over there rolling around with his coach. And then when we walk into the mat, he just said he's going to go live. So he
did. He did.
Boo, can't be it. You can't hate strategy.
Yeah.
It just.
I was gonna say he beat you kind of at your own game early on, because that's the kind of mental games you play. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I'll tell my guy, like, I'll tell the other corner, right, especially in the amateurs, I'll tell the other corner, like, right before, I'll let the other coach know, hey, we don't touch gloves, but I don't tell them until, like, right before the fight. Because then they get them thinking about why they don't touch gloves and you know what I mean? It changes their thought process to something they don't need to be thinking about.
Yeah, for sure. And to give Gilbert credit, he went through a bevy of tough Brazilians on his own right over there. Fredson Paixão, one of the guys he fought, they got into a dirty match where, like, Fredson was trying to break his fingers and toes, and like they were in a dogfight. So I'm not surprised that he was banged up, maybe consider. And there was that feeling in Abu Dhabi where you finish in the top four, you're in the money. You pull out, you're not making any money. So he was kind of forced to compete. If that hadn't affected his money, he wouldn't have fought, because he may have had a broken finger.
Absolutely, who knows? Yeah, but he because we hung out the whole time because I 100% thought we were going to meet in the finals. I did because of his wrestling resume. He's a 4-time Chicago, Illinois state champion. You have to realize how few there is. You should look it up. There's not very many 4-time Illinois state champs. And when I hear that, I'm a wrestling. I know that. I understand that. So I figured we'd wrestle our way to the finals.
Yeah, he was an All-American at Michigan in college. Very very decorated. And for the record, for people who may not be able to place Joey Gilbert was BJ Penn's debut match in the UFC.
That's what beat me on them.
Yeah,
because they probably would have thrown that at me, because they threw Pulver at me right before Velasquez got it.
So very, very interesting stuff going on there, and again, some high level stuff. So now you come back from Abu Dhabi. Monson won the whole thing, your teammate. How come you never went back? Why would you, or did you break up with the Hume team before the next year's Abu Dhabi?
I was in the Air Force, so I was in Korea, and so I went straight from Abu Dhabi to Korea. Like I had to turn down wrestling, my last year, there. I could have gone to the Air Force to go wrestle, or I was going to go to Abu Dhabi and go to Korea. One of those, it was going to happen, but I chose Abu Dhabi because, it was new. It was exciting and stuff. And I walked away from wrestling in my prime at 28. Crazy. I never even left my shoes on the mat. That's a big deal to wrestlers.
Sure. Yeah. We had wrestlers do that in Abu Dhabi. Actually, Mikey Burnett did that whole take off the shoes, leave him on the mat.
I enjoyed him when he was. I had fun hanging out with him. Mike's a good dude.
Yeah, he was definitely a good dude. Kind of, fun and funny. And he left his shoes after facing Jean-Jacques Machado there on the mats in Abu Dhabi. Very interesting sequence. So you do have a little bit of time off here. About 6 months before you're back into the now MMA stuff. and you're fighting in Shudo, and this time you're fighting Uchu Tatsumi. What was that experience like? Matt got you in the Shudo, obviously.
The problem is I didn't get to train with Matt. Remember I was in Korea?
Yeah.
I trained myself. I just ran in at the gym every day and I didn't know anything. Remember, I'm still green. I'm real green. I'm over there getting my buddies to come into the room and I'd set the timer and see how many times I could submit them in 3 minutes. That's how I got ready for that fight.
Okay.
No wrestling either. No, zero wrestling. No, none. It was absolutely, that's it. That's all I could. And so
Yeah.
had I trained with Hume, that's one fight I always wanted back because if I won that, I faced Nogueira for the title, you know, because that was the number one fight and he beat me in my own game. Oh man, he's awesome though. He's a stud. He retired after he lost the title fight.
Yep. And that's the thing with yourself, especially, you know that you can't be the best guy in your training, entourage, and when you're preparing for a big fight, you need to be challenged a little bit. Hume obviously provides that for anybody, but what you describe is not optimal conditions. Now it looks like you come back to the States and you face a guy who at some point, maybe he wasn't yet, but at some point Charlie Pearson was a teammate. What happened there?
Told him I don't want to fight Charlie. Just wanted to compete. I wanted to make sure they got me on the card because I knew they were going to get Charlie on the card because he's a big ticket seller. So I wasn't in the Air Force anymore, so I wanted to make sure I got on the card. So I told him I'd fight Charlie.
Okay, and how that match? What do you remember about that match? Because Charlie would qualify as a high skill guy, right?
He wasn't yet. He had not. His grappling's really good now. You should see his grappling now. It's really good. It's by far better than his striking ever was. He had this striking that was solid, but he wasn't elite. I would consider like he's like up there with us now. You know what I mean? I really do. He's good, but and I don't even like him. So there you go. That's how I can still speak nice about him. But he wasn't second generation AMC, and he was more of a third generation AMC with DJ, kind of those guys. He was that group. So I'll compete against anybody. I don't care. It's just competition.
Yeah. Now at some point here,
I learned a lesson that day though. Charlie's the one that taught me a lesson. He broke me. He made me stay in the corner and not come out for the third. After I slammed him so many times, first and second round, easy up on the cards, and he played the joke that I play on people now. I don't sit my guys down and I leave before the corner leaves and before they rack the bell. Because when your coach moves and you're sitting down, you look and my fighter's standing there looking at you, bouncing up and down. It mind fucks the hell out of you. It worked on me. I use it all the time for my amateurs. It works great.
So and Pearson, at that point, was he learning that stuff from Hume? Hume's the source of a lot of the genius from up among you guys, right?
It's a cool, all the cool stuff we did fighting was cool. But you know what? I was talking to Ivan a couple weeks ago. I go, Ivan, you know what's cool? We all got all my second generation AMC, we all got black belts, but none of us got it from Matt. We all got our own black belts out throughout. We still all became coaches. All of us knew how to coach striking and grappling, all of it. You know what I mean? So it's always been a big deal to us. We've never been one dimensional. If you're one dimensional, that's not the system that comes from Matt Hume. You know what I mean? You've got to be well rounded, especially we don't stand there and just trade. He teaches us a lot of, obviously DJ's perfected it,
Yeah.
Getting off center line. So
no, how did the breakup come with Hume? Because at some point you and Hallman started your own thing. And Hume sort of stopped coaching, maybe became more of a pride judge and things like that. And he took, a little bit of time off. Did it have something to do with the fact that he had a bad relationship with the UFC, couldn't move your careers, or was there some other reason?
I was the last piece that was added there. The problem was him and Ivan were battling for whatever reason. You know what I mean? It was, how it is. Sometimes it's just whatever. And you got to remember, that's a lot of roosters in one hen house.
Yeah.
If we don't have the right rooster leading us, we're all roosters. Every single one of Matt's not that far out of competition. And he's still giving out ass whoopings. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of roosters. And it was tough. And we were all So Ivan left first, and then Dennis talked me to open up a gym because he's like, oh, well, we'll drive up once a week there. We'll train super hard here. And I think we partied way harder than we trained at that point.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about that, because mixed in with the partying was always an aspect of fighting, because Hallman's a guy that, when you look at his record, has 50, 60, 70 fights officially, but even he is another guy where, you always heard the stories of, like, fighting, and then, during the 1 minute break, you got to drink a beer in your corner kind of stuff. And, fighting. To talk a little bit about that underground stuff that you guys were part of up there in the Southwest. I mean, the Northwest.
Underground. The problem was Matt Hume and those guys were running the commission, or however you want to say it. They wrote up the laws so it was only in their favor. So it was a mess. And so you put a bunch of, knuckleheads together. We're going to do what we got to do. I mean, yeah, gloves were optional. Definitely headbutts. I jumped in the ring to stop a fight that Monson was reffing, because the guy headbutted him, hit his eyebrow open. I jumped in the ring to stop the fight. So we had to pay rent, and fighters didn't pay rent. And we didn't have any students. So, you got to pay rent. Do what you do.
Now, is that, am I far off? Did it ever happen with the beer in the corner, or were there just keg parties going on around the fights, or did you have to actually fight drunk a little bit?
We had two guys that didn't have money to get in, fight each other. They're buddies, and they put up probably the best fight of the night. But it was like $20 to get in, and beers free won't last. So it was messy. It was messy. it was fun, but I'm glad there was no cell phones.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot of documentation on that, and they don't appear on the record here. But I know that went on, and in a certain way, competition's competition. When the bell rings and it's a little bit serious, and there's maybe some money on the line, or a win and a loss, even bravado, you're kind of honing the mind a little bit. Would you credit that as something that you're glad you did, or was it something that you kind of regret doing?
When you're walking away so early?
No, I'm talking about doing kind of, the underground fights, or kind of, fights without the commission around and stuff like that.
Hell yeah. Half the stuff we do in life is so we can laugh about it later at that point. You know what I mean? I don't really care.
Yeah.
Besides that, who are the people to tell us that we can't do it? Here you go, Miguel. It's a great example of commission. I'm a head official of Washington State for a long time, reffing. They come up to me before this pro fight and they go, "Hey, keep an eye on this fight tonight." I go, "Why?" "Well, because it's his debut and this and that, and we don't know who." All you have to do is say, and a person doesn't even have to be verified, writes a letter to the state of your training record, and he turns in a training record. Now you're a professional. That's how you license the state of Washington. And you want me to watch, you license the fight, but it's going to be on me. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's funny. It's an interesting perspective. Now, let me ask you, because this is one of those crazy things, and you're going to refresh. I know you got a better memory than I do. There was a time that you traveled to Indiana, and
Yep.
I believe that you had a fight in Indiana for hook and shoot. And I don't know if you lost your driver's license, or whatever the deal was, or we had bought a plane ticket under Hallman's name. You traveled with Dennis Hallman's ID and got all the way to Indiana as Dennis Hallman, where it's like, you guys don't really look alike. You fill in that story and clean it up for me.
Allegedly. Is it statute limitations over yet?
Yeah, for sure. We got about 17 years since that, so you're clear.
No, we have longer than that. It's been 20. Trust me, it's been 20, because it was right after 9/11 too. That's the dumb part. What had happened was he just lost to Pulver. He's supposed to go out corner, and he doesn't want to go anywhere. You know how fighters going to, to hiding. And so he asked me to go, and I'm like, all right, well, we'll give him to switch the ticket. They can't switch the ticket. And he's like, just go use this and go. Well, okay. So just, kept a hat on and didn't make eye contact, and leaned over at the counter and make sure, because he's at least 2 inches taller than me. I went out, cornered, won our fight, and came back and took our business. So
Yeah, I mean, after 9/11, you're right. It was 2000. Uh, let me look at
one,
this. Yeah,
2001.
2001. It looks like well, the hook and shoot fight was in March, so it was September of 2000. So this would have been November, the November fight against Curran. This was your title fight.
No, this wasn't me. Remember, no, I went. Remember, you said as far as traveling as him. I'm traveling as him wasn't when I went to go corner. Remember?
Oh, okay. So you cornered somebody. Okay.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah, yeah.
very interesting stuff, though. After 9/11, you'd think the security was up, but you got through, and you know, you also gave me
It
a
wasn't.
heavy-handed handshake after that. You bought me a little gift.
Oh yeah, Northwest.
So definitely an interesting and funny story to go through there, and just kind of the mayhem that went on back in the early days. But let's go ahead and get into your title fight with Jeff Curran, because Curran's a guy that even back then when he was young was on the serious side as a martial artist. And now he's a lifelong martial artist and a black belt and a teacher and things like that. And a guy who takes care of business. Um, but you kind of made you did one of your signature moves on him and took home the hook and shoot belt, which at the time was a pretty good belt to have. So talk about what you remember from that experience.
We were fighting for the #1 American spot. We were the top 2 Americans at that weight at the time. Mike Brown just started fighting. He fought Hermes. So think about time frame wise. That's Mike's coming up behind us. He's on the undercard type stuff. He's first fight in that. So in fact, I was at Mike's first fight.
Yeah.
Then he became a monster. But yeah, Curran, that dude is a monster. He is a way better fighter than me. And I was just more ready to compete that night. So
this was mindset, and actually, if I remember correctly, you kind of got him early. You picked him up, you slammed him, and either he broke a clavicle or he went out, and that was the end of the fight. Kind of made short work of him.
Yeah, it was. I told you I watched that fight recently for the first time ever. Finally, I actually broke it down because I've never watched any of my fights ever, any of them. But I've seen the clip of that Curran, but I've actually watched it in detail. And no, he wasn't going to beat me that night, no matter what happened. When I picked him up, my hips are turned. You're been spiking you through that thing. But if you look at it, I reach over the head and for position as wrestlers, we go position first, go kind of to pin, and then I kind of posture up and I'm looking right at him. And if you watch the video, I slam one right hand. His head's still up. I go one right hand, and then it's eye contact the whole time, just dropping elbows from high, and got up and turned right off. That's what I was most happy about. I never seen that part of me, never seen me be that, that person. So to watch me be that person, I was okay with. I was more happy about how I turned off right away. You know what I mean? I've always had a temper on me, and you know what I mean? But I've been able to control it enough to not get me in prison.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's why you kind of surprised me at the beginning of the interview when you said that you weren't a street fighter kind of guy and so like that. I would have bet against that. But it's good that you had some self-control, and that's cool. Now, as far as control, I could tell you another story I remember about you from Hook and Shoot, that you were one of the first guys, and I'm a matchmaker, but you're kind of drinking it up, and I was learning a lot, every show kind of thing. You taught me about weight cutting. What was talk about your weight cut system, because I remember you came out and I was being a jerk, having a few beers and maybe having a burger, and you're sitting there cutting weight, eating lemons, just lemons and salt. And so talk about your system and the mindset that and where you got all that from.
All wrong. It was all done wrong. If I knew now, then what I know now, the weight cut is so easy now. I take easy off my athletes 3 pounds a week consistently. And we about, plan it for however many weeks out. Our water cuts only 10 or 12 pounds, you know what I'm saying? So it's these 25-pound cuts of these guys. Somebody's going to die, but it's not going to be from the fighting. You know what I mean? Honestly, they've come close, man. But it was wrong, man. It was completely wrong, especially when we're going to go out there and, get into a fist fight. So
what were you doing back then? What was your system? Because I remember very clearly you were kind of grumpy with me because I was being a jerk, but you got you were sucking down lemons. What was the thought process, and what's wrong about it? Like for people who care about the science of it.
Nothing really wrong with it. It's just silly. I'm just, I did it so wrong because I was cutting so much water weight. I was cutting way too much water weight. I went with that Super Brawl fight that Matt Hume called me for. TJ Thompson will tell you the story to this day. I got there on Sunday at 161. On Monday, that was at noon. On Monday at 3 o'clock, I made 143. Cut 18 pounds. And that was,
Yeah,
it was crazy. It happened. So
that's extreme for your weight too. Tito cutting 18 pounds and you cutting 18 pounds is not the same thing.
At the last minute, yeah. But you said I should have been a 35-pounder anyways. I was just lazy. It's true.
Yeah, no,
100%.
That's cool. Curran too. And at that time there really wasn't a pure 135-pound weight class that you could consistently compete in. So you guys were kind of forced. Like you fought a lot of guys at 155. Like for example, black belt Edson Deniz, black belt Hermes Franca. Those were 155-pound fights where you were clearly smaller. Talk a little bit about those experiences.
Hermes, I always say Hermes was the second shot for me to get to the UFC. The first one, when they called Hume up, they asked him for me for Pulver at 150. I was undefeated at the time. I just beat Velasquez. Then he said no, and they called Frank up. Velasquez gets the fight. And then the second shot, Hermes, they were looking at Hermes, and I was top American at that time. So it was it's either him or I, and I didn't know enough. I didn't know enough about Hermes to. I was my own coach. You know what I mean? I wasn't under Hume or anything like that. I was doing my own thing, and so I needed a coach to put that. I would have needed Matt to beat him. He was very good at what he was very good at, and just didn't care. He didn't care what you know what I mean? He was so flopped to his butt. He threw at everything with nasty, bad intentions. So it's dangerous fighting guys. And he's nasty from his back. He's the only other guy that's ever made me feel uncomfortable on top. You know that? That's the only guy I ever let up. I let him up. I didn't feel comfortable there. Something didn't make and that's when he ended up on top in Mount, and that's how he finished the fight. So
who's the other guy that made you uncomfortable on the bottom?
He's the only one.
Okay. All right. I got you.
Not Edson. Edson. I pulled guard in the third round with Edson because I'm up 2-0, and they took a point away. That was dumb. He smoked my guard, mounted me, and punched me. And then Jamie Levine's trying to run and hide out the back door, not pay us. I took Joey Gale with me down there to fight. So Jamie's belling. You remember he was famous for that, his hot checkbook.
Yeah.
I got paid. I made sure we got paid. I just let Jamie know it's cheaper to pay me than it is to replace your car. I know where you live. I know where you live. You don't think I'm going to plan ahead if I'm going to deal with a snake like that? I'm not stupid. I'm going to find out what I need to find out, because if I got to deal with it, I'm not flying home. I'm going to have to deal with it before I leave.
Yeah, no, for sure. And those promoters that played it loose like that with paying people, not paying people, hey, they took their lives into their own hands, because, a lot of the guys, especially on the smaller shows, even if it was $500, they were there because they needed it. You know what I mean? That's part of the case with you too. You're kind of getting by at this point. No, it was
yeah. When I was on the unemployment, just got out of the Air Force and fighting, and I still had wife. I still had wife and kids to pay for it. So, yeah, absolutely. It was there wasn't no one. Yes, what's funny though is they tell us the sport's gotten bigger. Has it? As the pay's the exact same at the bottom, if not even $100 a few lower. They'll offer you $250 and $250 now for a pro fight. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's silly.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of charity work at the beginning. Even if you consider UFC, UFC on paper, they could say, we used to pay 2 and 2 entry level. Now it's about 10 and 10, but still 10 and 10 with insurance. I mean, with inflation. And then, you got to pay a coach, you got to pay, cause these guys, they don't come from the bar anymore. They've been preparing, they're getting ready, maybe they fought, on contender shows or anything like that. They've been, a lot of them are still doing charity work,
Yeah. That's
Now, do you get involved with negotiations for your guys right now and fighting and stuff when you still do that?
Oh, I'm only coaching wrestling now. I stopped coaching fighters in 2021, summer 21, finally. I've always put 10% into wrestling and 90% into MMA, you know, and now I'm doing 90% wrestling and teaching 10% jiu-jitsu. So I'm loving life. I couldn't be any happier. My gift is 14 and under, 14 down to 8, right around there. I'm really good at fine tuning them, getting them ready for high school.
Cool. Yeah, it's good. It's good that you found a passion, that you retain a passion, because it's better that way than if it's just a job kind of thing.
No, absolutely. I drive 3 hours to get here.
Wow.
Yeah, because I coach over here on Sundays. I coach 2 sessions on Sunday and then 1 on Monday, and then I go back home.
So now, towards the tail end of your career, you took a few losses in a row. Again, some of the guys were very good. Ian Loveland was good. Cole Escovedo was very good. Brandon Bledsoe was not bad. Talk about that run, and maybe regrets you had, or was the writing on the wall? What was your thinking there? Obviously, your last fight against Roy Bradshaw came after a 7-year layoff. So we'll talk about that layoff and stuff. Yeah. Your final run in the mid 2000s was with a loss streak, and I know the competitor you are, you don't like to lose. So what was going on there? How would you describe what was going on with that situation?
I started getting panic attacks out there, and it's happening during the fight. Victor Estrada was my first fight, I told you, and I got cut 2.5 minutes in. They're going to stop the fight. It's under my eye. This is me, hothead me. I'm threatening the doctor, the referee. I'll fucking tell you, you stop this. And there's 3,000 people in a room. I'm over exaggerating. Probably 2,000 people in a room that should fit 900. It was a mess. And they're like, they told Hallman, put Vaseline on it. If it starts bleeding again, we're going to stop it. And then I stopped him like 4 minutes later using a wrestling move, submitted him. So yeah, it's
your mindset changed because you said panic attacks. Why panic attacks? How'd you go from?
Not want to be. I went from that to a person. It only happens in the cage, because that's why you'd see a long break and I come back. It never happens in the room. I went from that person to a person who could not be out there anymore. I didn't want to be out there all of a sudden. It was weird. But it only happens. My body shuts down. I don't throw. I don't do anything. It's weird. I get that at Roy Bradshaw. That's how bad it got at the very end. I didn't even throw, and it wasn't. His fight happened because I was reffing one of his fights, and it's happened a few times with him. He got up into a fit and made all kinds of dumb, marks, and I'm like, it looks like I'm coming out of retirement. But by the time I fought him, I wasn't mad anymore, so I didn't have that mad energy to put on him, and that's what I had for Curran, luckily, because he did not really whoop my ass, because remember he didn't do it on purpose, but remember you guys couldn't find him.
Yeah.
For like 5 minutes. So I'm sitting up there in the ring, and I'm sitting up there and I'm getting mad, and I'm like, that's why you've seen me come out of their corner so hot. That was a big part of that, was him.
Yeah, he used to like to lock himself in like a tiny room in the basement of that building.
You had to find him.
He did for the Phil Johns fight. And what he had done was he had one of his teammates stand a couch up on its side and put it up against the door, so we kept walking by the door. And he was inside afterwards. So Jeff is a guy that I believe he went 0-2 in hook and shoot, and I know he's a better fighter than that. But I think he maybe overthought some of the stuff that he was doing on those particular nights. And facing tough guys, he fought you, he fought Phil Johns. Yeah,
I'm glad I never fought Phil Johns. That guy was a monster. He was luckily a weight class above me the whole time,
Yeah. Phil was a guy that, for hook and shoot. Yeah. He was a little guy, and when he got his UFC fight, he didn't do well. And I know he hates that, but there was no guy he was another guy just like you, where it was like, all right, you guys need a fight. The guy's 40 pounds bigger. Well, how much is the pay? You're going to pay me $50. All right, I'll do it. You know what I mean? There was not a question about whether he would fight or not. He was crazy. And the nice thing about Phil, he held our belt for a while. He was not from Indiana, but he fought there enough that the Indiana crowd got to know him, and he kind of became a little bit of a hook and shoot star. And he enjoyed it. So he had moments there where, holding the belt up after wins and things like that. I think Phil Phil has good memories from Hook and Shoot, and I don't think Jeff Curran does, but I hope you do.
No, you took very good care of us, man. You always treated us the way
Fair.
fighters should be treated. If you
Yeah.
always treated us the way fighters should be treated, it wasn't even about pay. It was just the way you treat us. I don't like when promoters talk down to fighters and like, if you don't, I've watched them just, if you don't do this, and just treat them like human, dude. They're going to come into a real uncomfortable situation. You know what I mean? And like you being considered my weight cut, you know what I mean? Understanding.
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's funny. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I think I screwed up. Like, you waited at the airport for us to pick you up like 4 hours one time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you forgot about me. I
And
didn't
you still
complain.
speak. No, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is you can still speak well of us. So, yeah, I
Of
think
you,
Jeff.
I didn't like your partners. Remember, I didn't like him. I still don't.
That's okay. That's funny. I screwed up, but I still had enough charisma and enough, ability, respect for the guys that,
You know, it's weird. Can you tell me this? Why didn't he never like me? He never liked me from day one. For whatever reason, I don't know for what I did, just because I was an asshole, whatever. But I was never an asshole to him. I compete against anybody you guys put in front of me. In fact, when I came out there with Kim Mason, remember, I fought the week before Charlie. I'm coming to you guys the next week. You're putting the tape on my gloves and my opponent drops out. You had a local Indiana guy there that was undefeated, and he bailed right as I'm getting the tape around. That was the night Kim Mason spit off like 9 pounds on skills and stuff. He was out on bail.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about Kim Mason here in a minute, but yeah, the thing about it is, I think that I showed up at Hook and Shoot, and I'm not, like a pro wrestling person like Jeff was, or really from a martial arts background or anything. I was kind of an administrator, and I saw that he needed help, but I also do have like a talent, like an eye for talent. Like I figured this sport out like really quick. So, but I think I always aim for, let's get bigger, let's go international. And I think Jeff would have been more comfortable with a local show the whole time. So
he had $7 ticket. He had $7 tickets when we started, remember?
Right, with $5 coupons. You know what I mean? and I'm serious that we would go out and like we'd go to Wendy's parking lot and leave coupons in the window of every car in the parking lot, that kind of stuff. So it was definitely like, and he enjoyed that local promotion, having a local guy, even if he wasn't going to be a world beater, that he could sell tickets with and stuff. So for me, I consider him a mentor and a guy that I'm grateful to, because he did let me get away with stuff that I wanted to do and put himself aside from that. But I do think that at times that made him a little bitter, and bringing guys in, plane tickets and things like that. I mean, I remember, the ticket money wasn't enough to pay people. I had to go to his concession money and get money from the T-shirts and things he sold. And, not everybody would have let me taken care of me that way and done that. But Jeff did, and I think that made him maybe a little bit bitter at times, but I'm grateful to him, because, we did what we did together.
I think you had relations with the fighters that he didn't have. And for some reason that seems like he put himself on the other side of the fence by himself. You know what I mean? I don't know if he was trying to work his way up to the UFC, and then he finds out he's too tall to be there and he can't commentate. Isn't that crazy that they did that to him? Because he was awesome on the mic, man. He really was. I really enjoyed his voice.
Yeah, for sure. Everything, he was brilliant in terms of fight analysis, and people who don't know, he lost his job to Joe Rogan. So, Rogan's now the legendary announcer there. But one of the main reasons for that, to hear Jeff tell it to you, is that he never won for the Fertitas over. It was actually Lorenzo that really had it in and wanted him gone. Maybe because he was maybe a little monotone, or because he wouldn't, hype up a guy that wasn't, that he didn't see as a guy he should hype. He was very much instinctual that way. And he definitely has his own perspective on the sport, but, you'd be hard pressed to find a time where he's just out and out wrong. He knew his stuff.
Very educated, very educated.
So, yeah. So, we're still friends. We still talk. He sent me his book. He's working with Jerry the King Lawler, the pro wrestler, right now. And they're doing a book of his art. And he sent it to me to edit. I still owe it to him, but yeah,
You didn't answer my question. How come he hated me? I don't know why.
I think it was part of the relation because of the relationship with me. Because again,
Probably, yeah.
you're a
I'm
plane
loyal to a
ticket.
dog. I'm a dog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a plane ticket, and now you're my guy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it was my guys and his guys. Aaron,
He just,
for example, Aaron was a guy I like to take care of, and also, we put him in rugged fights. I made him fight
man,
Chris Lytle.
did you guys, that's why I asked you, and I'm serious about it. We got to get somebody to interview because they don't realize the matchmaking you did. Eves Edwards, Eddie Alvarez, Jeremy Horn, the
Yeah,
list goes on. Just come up through, through your promotions and stuff. And
no,
it's
for
crazy.
sure, for sure. Like Aaron was a guy that because I had a good relationship with him, wouldn't turn down a fight either. And when I had a chance, I paid him well. But I talked to John Peretti recently. I got to do an interview with John, and he's an idol of mine in terms of matchmaking. And he said to me, I mentioned to him about my philosophy, which was I always match my friends as hard as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was like, exactly. That's exactly, that's how you think of matchmaking and stuff. So I was happy that John was concurrent there. Aaron, unfortunately, he ate a lot of tough fights for me, and he did them all.
Is Eve? I mean, how many times did him and Eves go? 3 times?
They went twice, once in MMA and once in Pancrase Rules in Texas.
But that Pancrase fight was just as brutal as anything else, man. That thing was brutal.
Yeah, Eves kneed him in the face and broke his palate.
Yeah,
and
that's what sucks. By the time we got him up to AMC, we wasn't the same dog anymore. You know what I mean? It's not the same dog in the fight.
Yeah, he was a guy that he got his jaw broken later again with Tony Ferguson. And that sort of stuff. So yeah, he suffered from injuries. And the thing about it, not to toot my own horn, but I would count Eve Edwards as a guy that likes me too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And here's one of those things where Eve Edwards versus Aaron Riley in Texas. Eve's in his hometown, but Aaron's hook and shoots guy. And the judges were me, Jeff, and Bob Voss for that fight. And we raised Eve's hand. He won. And there are promoters like Levine and people like that who it doesn't matter what happens in the ring. They had an agenda with who won, but we took it very purely. I remember Jeff looking at me being like, well, throwing his hands up, like, not happy that Aaron lost, but he didn't say, I'm giving it to Aaron. He didn't do that. He said he won that fight, damn, he didn't want that to happen. But we could get over that. And that's kind of, I think, why in general, most of the fighters respected the show, because we could look at the sport as being greater than anyone's personal agenda.
Who did you put Eddie Alvarez together? Now you've moved on to that other big promotion in Atlantic City. Who you put Alvarez in there with who in front of you? His first fight. Remember, you got to tell that story. That's funny. Remember Alvarez's first fight? You put him second on the card, wasn't it? When all those yellow shirts walked out after his fight.
Yep, for sure. He walked out. He was fighting a Japanese guy. His nickname was M16 or AK-47 or something like that.
I remember that guy.
He was a tough guy, 70 fights now and that sort of stuff. And his whole crowd, Philly street crowd kind of thing. And he had the big Japanese hair, and they were like, hit him in the hair, punch him in the hair. And then they all left, and we're sitting in an empty building. Eventually Eddie fought Nick Thompson. Nick Thompson was a lot bigger. Nick Thompson was a 200-pounder who could cut to 170. Eddie, in UFC was a 155er, but he was a 170-pounder for us. And, Nick got him. Nick beat him in Moscow. So yeah, everybody had tough fights, and when we could do, and they took them because they knew what we were doing was for the greater good, even their own good, Alvarez was a guy we had to negotiate with to get him to fight out of Philly, because it was like, just put me to fight in Atlantic City and I'll sell $30,000 worth of tickets. This guy sold tickets like a drug dealer. He had it broken down by neighborhoods and things. And that's how he described it. He said, we sold them like people sell drugs. A guy in each neighborhood, with a lockbox, go pick up everything like that. And he would show up and hand Vlad $30,000 in cash for his tickets. There's nobody only maybe Pat Miletich in Iowa was the only person I've ever heard who could compare maybe to selling tickets like Eddie Alvarez. So to get him to fight outside of there, we had to pay him. You know what I mean? It's like you can't go back to 2-2 after making 30 grand for a fight on your ticket percentage, you know?
Right, right. Yeah.
So you enjoyed coaching for a while. You also reffed. What was the reffing experience? And did you ever get to ref in the UFC? Go ahead and take us through some of that.
I'm on the traveling roster. I'm on the roster of each state thing. I've been on there for a couple of years now.
Talk about your UFC reffing experience. You actually were in the cage. What fight do you ref? What fight do you remember?
Last time they're up here, I got to do the first couple UFCs up here in Seattle, and then I'm traveling in 2016. But it's hard to get any recognition up here, you know, because there's no local shows that we don't have a feeder show that puts you on the bigger shows. We don't have anything in there. Ever since the day I fought, we've never had a show on pay-per-view up here. We don't have anything. There's no TV, nothing, and there's no shows building fighters around here. You know, it's a tough gig. Fighting out of the Northwest is real tough to get up to the higher level, get recognized. It's really tough because there's hardly any pro shows even. You know, it's very, very limited. Where the Northwest, we used to put quite a bit of people on the big shows. You know.
Yeah, and there's a plethora of talent, especially if you
all the way from Portland. Yeah.
Yeah, if you include Oregon, you know, then you're talking about elite talent, you know, all the way through the Canadian border and beyond, you know.
Absolutely, all the way up to Lance. Yeah, absolutely. It's all we're all affiliated with each other. You know what I mean? We've all trained together, whatever time. So
yeah. Now you got Kang in Vancouver too, Dennis Kang.
Monster.
Then you go to Portland. You got the whole Team Quest stuff. Talk about going down to Team Quest and training and Big Bear and those experiences, because I know that you were doing training camps in that area.
Yeah, I went to Big Bear with Hallman to get him ready for Pulver fight. We went up there with Tito, and Henderson was up there and stuff, and Rampage. So I was up there for a couple of weeks helping him get ready for Pulver fight. So that was cool. But people ask, man, you met Tito. I met Tito before that because Tito was in Abu Dhabi with us.
Yeah.
So I met Tito a long, long time before that. So we stay at his house. He was a cool dude. People get the wrong idea of him because they don't know him. You know what I mean? He's got a personality that he's making money. You know, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to market himself. But yeah, a lot of people don't know about this. I told you about it earlier, so I don't mind sharing it. Hallman and I did the first Masvidal kind of Ben Askren to a wrestler. You know, because Hallman and I owned our gym together. And I just got done with my third All-American, wrestling Greco with the Air Force. And I go, D, I'll tell you right now, if we rush him, I promise you he's going to wrestle.
You're talking about fighting Matt Hughes, because he beat Matt Hughes in a Monty tournament by armbar very fast. And then they set up the rematch in the UFC. Oh, okay.
No, the guillotine was the first one in a Monty little square cage. Remember that?
Okay.
He choked him unconscious. No, the second one was armbar. Yeah, I told him.
And that was in UFC in Japan.
Absolutely, yeah. Lance Gibson fought that night too, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said, if we rush him, he's going to wrestle. Guaranteed. And that's the deal. We came out of the corner hot. Boom. Now he's wrestling. I go, all right. Now you just pissed off Matt Hughes. He's going to Donkey Kong you, So for the next 6 weeks, I slammed him so many times. Seriously, we joked about it. It was like probably 75, 80 times. Because if you go back and look at that video, it worked right there because Matt did everything. We kind of set the traps and stuff. And luckily, we were able to, because if not, Matt Hughes, I think, beats the crap out of us if we can't submit Matt Hughes. You know what I mean? We're a rough night. That Matt Hughes.
Hallman can hang with anybody, but Hallman had maybe in the first 2 minutes, he was probably at his most dangerous. He was a guy that had an unorthodox, maybe feel to his grappling, where I think if people grappled with him a lot and got used to him, maybe they could stifle him a little bit. But he was a guy that had a couple of tricks that nobody was going to be able to hang with. And I'm talking about nobody on the whole world level.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. It was him and Henzo met. A lot of people don't know him and Henzo faced each other first match in Abu Dhabi. We had rough draws. You know what I mean? We had some tough draws because we're not going to get seeded. It's Jeff Monson, Josh, myself, Ivan, and Dennis. Who the heck are we? Nobody,
Yeah. Josh got Kerr.
Josh got Kerr. Jeff pulled Monson. He pulled he pulled a Rona in the semis, remember?
Okay. Okay. Yep.
Was that the semis or the finals? Rona beats him, remember? Because that's the American Top Team logo is Rona raising his hands over Jeff.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Jeff won the tournament his first year.
Yep, he won it when Matt competed.
Okay.
He got. I think he got second. Did he get second?
Arona beat him at one point, and he won multiple championships over there in multiple weight classes too, because he'd go up to heavyweight and then go down to the 218 and stuff.
Arona beat Tito in the semis, and Jeff was on the other side of the bracket against, wasn't it Hughes that was up against, because he submitted Horn, remember, thrown Horn to.
Okay,
wasn't that the other side? I think that was the other side of the bracket, because Hughes and Tito went for third.
Okay, yeah, we could talk about that. Horn and Hughes did a work.
That worked. They still got beat.
Well, they had to fight each other, and Hughes was in way out of his weight class because Abu Dhabi had invited him. You know, they wanted him there, and then the brackets filled up, and they moved him, and then they moved him up 2 weight classes. And he was where he shouldn't compete, but Hughes was a competitor. And he threw Horn and submitted him all in kind of one fell swoop, and was going to take home submission and throw of the tournament until Henzo and his guy kind of did a fast submission or a faster submission and took that away from him. They did win throw of the night, and your teammate Barnett and got really thrown by Kurt. And I remember him in the rule meeting. He goes, or in the meeting, people were like, "Well, what about that throw?" And Barnett goes, "Yeah, and mine was real."
Yeah.
So those are the good old days for sure.
So yeah, that was a good moment for me and D, because we just, like I said, we were trained just in a little gym, and he went out there, and when you can go back and look at it now, it's like, that's why it looks slow motion. When he slammed him, we was like, okay, perfect. We've been waiting for that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a beautiful orchestration there. Now let me ask you, I heard there were some shenanigans at the weigh-ins where like the scale was something that Dennis jumped on 100 times.
I was not there. I cannot testify. I don't know anything, man. I wasn't there. It's funny. I've never even asked. I don't even.
Hallman told me the story, actually. I wanted you to corroborate it, and if you had your perspective, I think it would be good. But what happened is they checked themselves on their scale, him and Jeff, and then they went to the other scale, and the other scale was way messed up and light. And the reason being is that Tito fought Kondo, and Kondo was not a 205 pounder either. So they were thinking they're leaning this towards, for Kondo's benefit, Tito ain't going to make weight. So Hallman and Monson took turns jumping up and down on the scale, just getting it softened up for the weigh-ins. The Japanese knew at the weigh-ins that something had happened, but Hughes, Hallman, everybody, they all lined up. Tito, they all weighed in, and Kondo comes in last, and then they realized it, but everybody was like, well, we're rehydrated already, nothing you can do. So yeah, they got away with one there in Japan and pulled one over on the Japanese who were trying to put one over on them.
I got to ask Hughes, Matt Hughes. He was up here at one of the shows a few years back. He was as a guest. I got to ask him, how come you never fought Dennis again? I figured he'd won it as a competitor, and he said he'd always lose that fight to get me that fight put together. You know what I mean? It was because, like you said, D for the first 2 minutes, woof. But if you look at that resume of people that they ran through, you know what I mean? And he didn't, like you said, the problem was he didn't have the durability and the chin to compete with that. He'd have to grapple the whole time. You know what I mean? His chin durability, it didn't do him well when he was in those positions to trade. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
and then I feel like his pigeon chest too may have affected his gas, because he never really cleaned up his gas throughout his whole career, no matter what weight he was at.
I have the same pigeon chest. It's not it. It's not it. He won a high school state title smoking weed in wrestling. So think about how much output you put out. You know what I mean? And I'm coming from wrestling at the highest level. I'm walking in the room going, "What's?" You know what I mean? And Matt's trying to kill us, obviously. So There was some rough nights in that room, man. I was the smallest guy in the room. Remember that?
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So talk about what you're doing now as we wrap up here.
Coaching wrestling, enjoying it, loving it, man. And still wrestling a lot. I'm getting stuff taken care of from 10 years ago so I can get back to my business and stuff. So it's been fun. I like coaching wrestling. And I like not coaching fighters. Fighters are not there's most fighters are as loyal as their next win. You know?
Yeah.
So I haven't had any bounce on me, but there's been a lot of fighters that are in the Northwest. And it's around that I've seen. And so it's happening all over those big gyms in Vegas. They didn't build those fighters. Other coaches built those fighters, most of them and stuff. But they moved down there thinking that being local is going to make it happen. And man, I've been in Uriah's gym. He's got 60 pros in there. And how many of those 2 or 3 in the UFC? Maybe it's tough to get in there, man. There's 700 guys there. How many roster spots is there? It's not very many. They're cutting it quick too, aren't they?
Yeah. No, they cut you. And so you found the loyalty with the kids.
I just love it. I like coaching wrestling. I like 14U. I mean, my kids, 8 to 14 years old, kind of right in that neighborhood. So it makes it fun, man. I get to help somebody chase their dreams that really has a dream. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I look at it. And
So
I didn't
you
have
found happiness in your old age.
Although I've been happy, man. I've always been happy. I just, I didn't, when that lever shut off of the competitor that I had, there I actually can go back and look at what I did and all that stuff. I'm like the same thing that made me a great, doing what I was doing also made me an asshole at times with other stuff. So I've learned how to be such an asshole, I guess. Still gonna be honest.
Yeah.
Still gonna be honest.
No, I always gave you credit for that. Now, let's close out with a kind of a tragic story, but also a story, that's interesting and unique. And that's the Kim Mason story. You mentioned Kim in Hook and Shoot, where he had a fight and, he didn't do the weight cut well. He wound up in the hospital. I remember picking him up off the floor, throwing up. He had fallen down the stairs in the arena there in the War Memorial. And he was at the bottom of the stairs lying in a pool of throw up, and we picked him up and took him to the hospital. And I remember he had his thigh wrapped, and, that thigh wrap is later became evidence in his trial. Why don't you take us through all of that in the perspective? And did you think he was guilty at the, when the first things start coming out?
So remember, I'm gone to the Air Force. I come back and, I fight Charlie. Kim fought on that same card with me a week before that. Kim fought in a kickboxing match the week before I fought Charlie. So the next week we go to Hook and Shoot. He's like 9 pounds over, and he's not. I'm always whatever I am, but I'm cutting hard and getting to work like I always have. I've always showed up there. I tried to go to bed 6 over at the highest, but it's it happens. I killed myself and did it wrong. So, but anyways, he spit off 9 pounds. You know what's funny about it? You know who was in the corner that his opponent? Joey Gilbert and his brother.
Okay.
That was their fighter.
Okay. That's fighter. Interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting because there's animosity at that time with us. It was funny.
Was that Jay Buck that he fought?
I think so.
I think it was Buck, and Buck is another Hook and Shoot legend. He's a guy that at times trained drunk, wrestling his father on their lawn. That's a kind of hardcore guy. And he was a guy that, I remember one time at the bar in the after fight party, they were like, last call. And he went to the bar and was like, 8 beers. Yeah. So yeah, Jay Buck was definitely a type A individual and a tough fight. So even though Mason was a pro, his head wasn't in the fight is what you're telling us. Why was that? Tell the story. What have you heard?
He was out on bail. I didn't know any of this stuff. So he's reading the newspaper. We're at the airport. He's like reading the newspaper of his case. This just happened. And so, like you said, that wrap that was around his leg became evidence. That's why we can never get the video from my fight with Charlie. The state took it because he was a prime suspect in a murder/kidnapping. And he was out on bail because his dad used to be used to be deputy chief, used to be really high up in the Seattle PD, retired. So they put him out on bail under these conditions on a PR. They to his dad, no money. And during that time, is when he got rid of the body, killed the body, or whatever. That was in the newspaper. It said because him and his girlfriend said, "I'm having a bad day." You think you're having a bad day? He goes, "I had to cut his effing head off." I mean, so whatever. That
Wow.
was the paper. But I traveled with him, and remember I told you, I go, Miguel, I'm not staying in the same room with him. Nope, I refuse. I made you guys get me. I don't care if he's my teammate or not. This guy's no, not gonna happen. But yeah, that was the night the guy backed out as I was getting the tape around my gloves, and then I cornered Kim, and then we went home, and he got arrested coming back from fighting over in Japan. He's in. He's only one of 5 that has ever been convicted in at the time of Washington. First degree murder without a body. They never found the body. His girlfriend turned on him, rightfully so. So he had her pick her up from the airport. It was a guy, and then we could follow everything in the newspaper at that time. Everything, it was pretty.
Yeah, it's Googleable, and you can check it out because yeah, the guy he killed somebody, supposedly around a kind of a gay relationship or something.
There's 2 stories. There's 2 stories behind. I'll tell you both. One of them is the guy supposedly was a partner, and the guy had Kim finds out the guy's got HIV, and Kim's got a girlfriend. That's one story, and the other one was he kidnapped the guy, threatened to they had to write a check, something about checks, drug debts or whatever else like that. But Kim had money. Kim made from money, so I don't know what that would have been about. And yeah, he wasn't a broke kid, so he had a very nice car. So yeah, I don't know which story it was, and that's how they got to hers because they go, oh, he was over here with this guy. You think he loves you? He's over here with this guy, and this guy's got HIV. So that's how that story came about, and that's how they sold.
Yeah,
and so who knows?
Yeah, it's crazy, but man, unfortunately, in terms of the fight game, he was a talented guy.
Oh my goodness,
who could have gone far, and he kind of ruined his life, and on his own kind of thing.
Yeah, that seemed like you said. We're second. We talked earlier. Todd Bjornathan and all those guys. The Lowleys are their first generation. I'm second generation AMC. Hume. And man, I wish we could have kept those guys. I didn't want to leave. I just got there, and I just got back from Korea. But everybody, Monson was going to ATT. He's getting pulled that way. Josh is getting pulled to California now because he doesn't have any training partners. So it was just like, it was, vaporizing. And where I'm going to stay with Hallman, of course. And I'm not going to ride the other way because I didn't know I should have. It probably would have been a good idea, but I don't know. I don't have any regrets, man. I don't have any regrets. I had fun. I learned a lot. I got to compete. I got to do things I never. Who thought I would ever do any of that cool shit? You know what I mean? Well, how fun is that?
No, for sure, brother. For sure, man. I thank you very much for this time, man. Good walk down memory lane. Amazing. Amazing memory.
Check the gym out of that, man. You probably don't even realize I'm in Jiu-Jitsu. There's Juliana Pena's world title right there.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, see, there's her coach with Hoist, and there's Fiesta and all these guys. So this is the Jiu-Jitsu gym.
Look at the size of that thing.
World champion built in a garage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, maybe you can get us an interview with her.
Absolutely. I can push it that way and see whatever. Yeah, absolutely. I got her phone number if you want it. I'll text it to you.
Yeah, but you know me. I won't let up.
I don't talk to her. I don't talk to her. I don't talk. When they get to a certain level, if we see each other's high, other than that, I don't talk to them. You know how it is. I like.
Yeah. She's got another coach and stuff like that.
No. Rick Little is still her head coach. He's been lead corner and everything on the world titles. She trains out in Chicago, but when it's lead, he goes out to our training camps out there and everything, puts them together and all that stuff. He's been lead and head coach. So
cool.
How do you? Yeah, cool, man. Well, thank you. I want to get an interview with Rick though. Rick, what does he get? He's won Ultimate Fighter 3 times now. He's coached it. So,
Sure. No, yeah, I would love to, man. We should definitely hook that up for me as well. I'd appreciate it a great deal. I'll be in touch with you. Like I usually do, bother you and shit, and get it done.
Nice to seeing you. I want to come down there one of these times. I didn't get to go down there when all those guys were fighting. Killing all those guys because.
Yeah.
Whatever,
it didn't last as long as I would have liked to. I would have gotten around to it because I don't forget about people. And try not to. There's a lot of people I got to take care of, during that run. And you know, maybe if I didn't have that streak, it might have lasted a little longer. But I think the writing was on the wall.
Man,
You
I
know what I
watched
mean?
you. You got. I'm gonna tell how much you got because I mean, you spent on all of us, man. Your pay. I won't say your pay. You spent thousands. I'll say that on all the fighters at the bar. You can take care of those. And I mean, it used to bug me. These guys would just sit around and just work, soak up your, run your tab, and then they'd leave. And I'm like, you motherfucker. That's how mad I was getting because remember, I never drank off your. I would not. I didn't get drunk back then. I wasn't
Yeah.
into that. It was. But I would see those guys come around. I'm like, you guys don't even fucking probably know his name. That's how I feel. That's how protective I am. That's all.
Yeah, no, I knew it was happening. You're trying to. The fact is your ego gets involved, and you're trying to look bigger, and you are too. And there are a few bar tabs I'd like to have back, and I'd like to have that money in my account. You know what I mean? So
I quit gambling. I quit gambling in 2013. I absolutely know what you mean. Yes.
for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Big hug, man. Great hooking up again, and
Good seeing you,
we'll
man.
talk soon. Yes, sir. Thank
I'll
you.
see you. All right, brother. Later.
Bye bye. Yep.